Thank you, Joe. And choir. Joseph. Thank you, guys. Little reminder to silence your cell phone, and on exiting, we're going to turn. Bergie, where are we turning? Right. Thank you, Bergie. Now, I'd like to welcome our secretary of our executive board, Suzanne Paul. Please come up, Suzanne. Give her a hand, secretary.
Wow, what a welcome this morning, huh? I want to welcome all of you to the Congregation for Humanistic Judaism. I want to welcome our members and our friends and extend a very warm greeting to those of you who might be joining us for the very first time. We're very happy to have you here. My name is Suzanne Paul, and as Tom said, I am the board secretary this year. If you have been attending high holiday services, you know that this year we have been asking for contributions to match a $30,000 donation that will match every dollar that we raise. This money will be used to install a state-of-the-art security system, and if we are so fortunate to hit the $30,000 mark, we will be able to greatly improve our sound system as well. I sincerely hope that by now you are all aware of this and have made your generous donations. I also want to tell you that we still have envelopes here available, and you can now go to the CHJ website, and there's a pull down that says Security Campaign, and you can pay online. So now that we've gotten rid of all that business, I decided today that I wanted to talk a little bit further about something else. I was going to focus on something else. Our wonderful new president, Elaine Fieldman, made the comment on Rosh Hashanah that our congregation is in great shape. I thought I would use my allotted time to elaborate on what I think it means when a congregation is in great shape. I identified 6 things that I believe make a congregation great. Rabbi Wein always liked to number his talking points. Any of you remember that? So I'm going to do the same, and I have come up with the number 6. Number 1, to be in great shape requires a dedicated board of trustees. These men and women must oversee the business of the congregation because although we are a religious community, we are also a small business. In this regard, we have a committed and caring board who are working very hard all the time on our behalf. Number 2, you must have a really, really outstanding rabbi, which we do. For 10 years, Rabbi Jeff has endeared himself to us, and we know that we are loved and well taken care of. He keeps us all in great shape. Number 3 kind of supports number 2. We have an extraordinary music director. Joseph supports our rabbi for Shabbat services and so much more, and his music is truly a gift to us all. Number 4, to have attained the great shape status, you have to have a great staff, and we do. And every one of them goes well beyond what their job description expects. Anne-Marie, Michelle, Wendy, and Jermaine make our time in this building unbelievably wonderful. And Melanie, of course. Thank you. They do things to make us comfortable and happy, and many more things that we will never even know about. Number 5, we have a really nice building. Yes, I know the roof leaks. Our landscaping is still in process, and I'm sure we can all find something else to complain about. But you know what? This is a great place. We make memories here, friends here, our children have life cycles here, and after 60 years, this is home. And finally, number 6. Number 6 is easy. In my humble opinion, it's the membership that makes or breaks a congregation. And that is why our congregation is great. We may not be the largest congregation, but we are one of the most active. Every member contributes, whether it's through volunteering or financial support. Everyone contributes to our greatness. We don't lack activities, events, services, classes, you name it, and we have it. And if we don't have it, someone figures out how to get it. And most of it is generated by our members. Our CHJ members are generous with their time and their money. The members of CHJ are the backbone of this congregation. So there you have my 6 reasons why CHJ is in great shape. Thank you, Elaine, for reminding us that we have so much to celebrate this new year and to be grateful. Happy New Year.
Once again, Good Yantif, everybody. Chag Sameach. Just a couple of words of things that are coming up this Friday night. We hope to all be outside in our sukkah or at our sukkah in any case. Potluck dinner at 6 o'clock. It's a wonderful occasion, and we'll also be featuring some discussion about issues of homelessness that are suggested by the holiday itself. I also want to highlight, and I forgot to do it last night, if you know families, young families that are interested in family education, that's what we do now in our Spinoza program. We did launch last Sunday, but we're going to be continuing, not yesterday, but the week before. We're going to be continuing tomorrow, this week rather. Our sukkah will be up for the kids and the parents, and it's really a great program. It features something for the parents, something for the kids, and something for everybody together. It's also tuition free. It's just open for anybody who wants to join our congregation and to be part of it. And then finally, if you could mentally mark your calendars on September 29th, October 27th. Every date that's on my mind I get wrong. October 27th, check the newsletter. We're going to have our first all congregation singing Shabbat dinner. And Joseph's helping me put that together. It should be wonderful, and I hope that you'll join us for that. There is a lot going on, so please check the newsletter. It comes out generally every Tuesday. You should see it tomorrow, and it's filled with activities, many of which, in fact, most of which that aren't involving necessarily education are coming from our members who have put together everything from mahjongs to gardening to beautiful concerts, which Joseph and Melanie have put together coming up, and just amazing things. For such a small congregation, we have an enormous heart and an enormous level of activity. So let's now thank our readers and then begin our service. They are today Rabbi Miriam Jairus, Sandy Landau, Sandy Altman, Deborah Shanker and Helen Shanker, Melanie Goldberg, Harriet Meza, Audrey Pleasant, Tom and Lonnie Fleischer, Larry Ellenbogen, and we will hear once again from Suzanne Paul in a beautiful reading at the end. In Leviticus and the Torah, we hear these words, Ach be'asor lachodesh hashvi'i hazeh, yom ha'kippurim hu, mikra kodesh yihye lachem. And on the 10th day of this 7th month, there shall be a day of atonements. It shall be a sanctified gathering for you. Yom Kippur is an end and a beginning. The Jewish New Year stretches from the evening of Rosh Hashanah to the afternoon of Yom Kippur. In these 10 days, we improve our lives. We cannot change the past, but we can learn from our past to affect our future. In these 10 days, we start the new year on the right note. Yom Kippur isn't the end of this beginning. Just as the Jewish New Year is a process, so too is self-examination. We face ourselves honestly, which requires courage. We explore our relations with each other, which demands commitment. We discover what we truly feel and believe, which takes time. Today is the time for courage and commitment. Today is Yom Kippur.
Let us ask ourselves hard questions, for this is the time of truth. How much time did we waste in the year that is now gone? Did we fill our days with life, or were they dull and empty? Was there love inside our home, or was the affectionate word left unsaid? Was there a real companionship with our children? Or was there a living together and a growing apart? Were we a help to our mates, or did we take them for granted? How was it with our friends? Were we there when they needed us or not? The kind deed, did we perform it or postpone it? The unnecessary jibe, did we say it or hold it in? Did we live by false values? Did we deceive others? Did we deceive ourselves? Were we sensitive to the rights and feelings of those who worked with us? Did we acquire only possessions, or did we acquire new insights as well? Did we fear what the crowd would say and keep quiet when we should have spoken? Did we mind only our own business, or did we feel the heartbreak of others? Did we live right? And if not, then have we learned and will we change?
Wie Okay. Lashana Tova, everybody. Yom Kippur is a day of forgiveness. We see ugliness all around. We are indignant and impatient. It is hard to forgive a world that defies our ideals. It is easy to bear a grudge or point an accusing finger. Mistakes are human and rarely lovable. Yet forgiveness is not born out of love. It emerges from an urgent need to use our energies more profitably to move on with our lives. Yom Kippur is a day of self-forgiveness. Our harshest judge is not to be found among family or friends. It is the permanent tribunal of our own conscience. The chief prosecutor of our psyche works a day and night bringing charges and laying out evidence. The wise person knows that the proper function of the conscience is to help plan for the future. We must find forgiveness in our hearts for ourselves if we are to find a brighter tomorrow.
Where is my light? My light is in thee. Where is my hope? My hope is in thee. Where is my strength? My strength is in thee. And in you. And in you. Where is my strength? My strength is in thee. And in you, and in you.
Sandy?
Today we see ourselves as we truly are. How do we review the record of our deeds from this past year? How do we evaluate the quality of our existence? We cannot blame our conduct on forces beyond our control. With our own hands, we write and seal the record of our own deeds. We are fully responsible for the quality of our life, for making the most of it or the least of it. On Rosh Hashanah, we reflect. On Yom Kippur, we consider. Who shall live for the sake of others? Who shall leave a heritage of life?
Who shall hunger for the good? Who shall thirst for justice and right?
Whose tongue shall be a thrusting sword? Whose words shall make for peace?
Who shall be plagued by fear of the world? Who shall strangle for lack of friends?
Who shall rest at the end of day? Who lies sleepless on a bed of pain?
Who shall go forth in quest for truth? Who shall be locked in the prison of self?
Who shall be serene in every storm? Who shall be troubled by the passing breeze?
Who shall be poor in the midst of possessions? Who shall be rich, content with their lot?
We seek to forgive ourselves and others the past. We seek to experience a sense of renewal for tomorrow. May we go forth with rejoicing to a year of great goodness, which shall inscribe in our book of life.
Our misdeeds constitute a veritable alphabet of unethical behaviors. The offense of arrogance, bigotry, and cynicism, of deceit and egotism, flattery and greed, injustice and jealousy. Some of us kept grudges, were liars, malicious, or narrow-minded. Others were obstinate or possessive, quarrelsome, rancorous, or selfish. There was violence, weakness of will, xenophobia. We yielded to temptation, were zealous for questionable ends.
We look for the right thing to do. We look for the right thing to do. The right thing to do is to love one another. That is the right thing to do.
We have transgressed against life by failing to work for peace. We have transgressed against life by keeping silent in the face of injustice. We have transgressed against life by ignoring those who suffer in distant lands. We have transgressed against life by forgetting the poor in our own midst. We have failed to respect others. We have withheld our love for those who depend on us.
We have engaged in gossip and in repeated slander.
We have distorted the truth for our own advantage.
We have conformed to fashion and not to conscience.
We have indulged in despair
And trafficked with cynics. We have wronged ourselves by failing to rise to the best that is in us.
Isaiah, prophet of ancient Israel, chastised his people for turning their backs on the needy and for failing to create a just society. His words were so powerful that hundreds of years later, the rabbis of old decreed that Jews must read them on every Yom Kippur. Is this an acceptable fast? A day for people to afflict their souls? Is it to bow down their heads like bulrushes and spread sackcloth and ashes beneath them? Is such what you call a fast? Is not this an acceptable fast? To loosen the fetters of evil and untie the bonds of every yoke, to let the oppressed go free? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry and bring the outcast poor to your house? When you see the naked, that you cover them, and not to ignore your fellow kin. Then shall your light burst forth like the dawn and heal body and spirit. Then shall your righteousness be visible to all. If you remove the chains of oppression, the menacing hand, the words of malice, and if you offer compassion to the needy and relieve the afflicted soul, then shall your light shine in darkness and your night become as bright as day.
I looked at the title of what I was reading, was going to read aloud tonight, and this afternoon. I'm still back in the past, and all I could think of was "Hold on" from my past. That's what my mother would say to me every time we rode the subway in New York. And she said, "Hold on," because there were no seats. But I would not hold on. I could keep my balance. Well, this hold on today is not something we play games with. This is positive we must do. So hold on to your hand when you are about to do an unkind act. Hold on to your tongue when you are just ready to speak harshly. Hold on to your heart when evil persons invite you to join their ranks. Hold on to your temper when you are angry, excited, or angry, or others are angry with you, blah, 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 and you can't get your words out. Hold on to the truth, for it will serve you well and do you good throughout your life. Hold on to your integrity. That's most important to me, for it is above all price to you in all times and places. Hold on to your character, for it is and ever will be your best wealth.
There's always great answers we are seeking. There's a place to find our light of home. Where's the strength to realize our vision? Yishmakom b'tochenu, Yishmakom b'tochenu. Look within yourself, you'll find it there. There's a place with wisdom that can guide us. There's a place where we know what's right or wrong. Where's the path to peace that we all long for? Yishmakom b'tochenu, Yishmakom b'tochenu. Look within yourself, you'll find it there.
Yom Kippur is a day of truth. We have considered our past and decided not to hide from its reality. We have looked into our future, and we do not fill its spaces with fantasies of our desire. We cannot return to the past. We can only step into the future. We resolve this day to choose courage. We will not surrender to fear of the unknown. We will seek wisdom wherever it may be found
and allow it to nurture our strength. Yom Kippur is a day of hope. We will not endorse despair. We will not turn problems into mysteries so that we never learn to solve them. Our optimism is our survival, and we will allow it to nurture our will to live. We resolve this day to live in the truth. We resolve this day to embrace hope.
Sachiki, Sachiki, al hachalomot, tuani hacholzach. Sachaki, Adonai, ki odeni ma'adipach. Sachaki, laugh at all my dreams, my dearest. Laugh and I repeat on you that I still believe in people, as I still believe in you. That I still believe in people, as I still believe in you.
You're first, right? Okay.
It is never too late. The last word has not been spoken. The last sentence has not been written. The final verdict is not in. It is never too late to change my mind, my direction, to say no to the past and yes to the future, to offer remorse, to ask and give forgiveness. It is never too late to start over again, to feel again, to love again, and to hope again. Rabbi Harold Schulweiss.
My turn. Okay. Thank you. When a person begins life, countless gates stand waiting to be opened. The gates do not stay open forever. We walk through the years and they shut behind us. At the end, they're all closed, except the one final gate, which we must enter before it's too late. Let us open the gates that lead to blessing. Let us enter the gates of tranquility. Let us enter the gates of kindness and compassion. Let us open the gates to those things in life that abide eternally. Before the gates swing shut, before all of them close, do not remain standing at the outer gate. The gates are to be entered. The sun is low, the hour is late. Let us enter the gates at last. Ready? We rise up each morning and the earth rises too.
weary, we rise up and we want something new. A world where compassion flows freely as rain. A world where all people can live without pain. Inclusive of all and rejecting of none. Where love touches all lives like the warmth of the sun. No abuse and no hatred, no prisons of fear. As the sound of the shofar celebrates the new year. If we open our hearts to the love waiting there, we can have the power to heal our despair. If we open our eyes and see all people are kin, destruction will end and a new world begin. If we open our hearts, if we open our eyes, if we open our minds, a world without sorrow, a world without pain, a world where compassion falls freely as rain, a world where all people are united as one. If we open our hearts, if we open our minds, if we open our arms.
We seek peace, the most precious gift we can bestow upon ourselves. May we find the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Okay. May our country strive to be a stronghold of peace and its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within its borders, health and happiness within its homes. May we strengthen the bonds of friendship among the inhabitants of all lands. And may the love of humanity permeate every home and every heart. May we labor for righteousness, and in so doing, author a new book of blessing and peace, for we alone are the source of peace.
No
In this community, where if you find strength and common purpose, we turn our minds and hearts toward all those who need our love and support, those who are ill, those who suffer pain of the body or spirit, those who are lonely, those who have been wronged. May all who suffer know that they are not alone, that we are there. May they be healed quickly. May they experience a complete recovery, Refuah Shlema, the renewal of their bodies and the renewal of their spirits.
May the source of strength that dwells so deep within us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Shalom. May those in need of healing know Refuah Shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Shalom.
I'd like to invite Felicia Goldberg, who will sound for us the shofar, symbolically, although it's still early in the day, ending Yom Kippur. We do have a 2:00 memorial service, but this is the end, the formal end of our Yom Kippur service, page 19. With one final blast of this shofar, we express our deepest hopes for a year of pardon and forgiveness, a year of respect and integrity, a year of love and blessing, a year of health and well-being, a year of harmony and contentment, a year of joy and wonder, a year of peace. Tekiah Gedolah. Thank you.
If some messenger were to come to us with the offer that death should be overthrown, but with the one inseparable condition that birth should also cease, if the existing generation were given the chance to live forever, but on the clear understanding that never again would there be a child or a youth or first love, never again new persons with new hopes, new ideas, new achievements, ourselves for always and never any others, could the answer be in doubt?
We must not fear death. We must remember those who come before us, those who come after us.
Let us treasure the time we have and resolve to use it well, counting each moment precious, a chance to apprehend some truth, to experience some beauty, to conquer some evil, to relieve some suffering, to love and be loved, to achieve something of lasting worth.
May we fulfill the promise that is in each of us, and so conduct ourselves that generations hence will be true to say of us,
The world is better because for a brief space they lived in it.
Our thoughts turn to those who are no longer with us, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every people and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have taken into our hearts with our own.
May the memory of good people bless our days. Bless our days. Bless our days. Sing it, sing it.
If you can do so comfortably, I invite you to rise as together we recite our humanistic interpretation of Kaddish. Nit Gadal v'nit Kadash beruach ha'adam. Let us dignify and ennoble all people in the spirit of our shared humanity. Let us proclaim the preciousness of life. Let us show gratitude for life by approaching it with reverence. Let us embrace the whole world, even as we wrestle with its parts. Let us each in our own way take up our share in serving the world and seeking truth. May our commitment to life help us to strengthen healing of spirit and peace of mind. May peace and justice permeate and comfort the house of Israel and all those who dwell on earth. And let us say, Ken Yehi, may it be so. Please be seated. Joseph, thank you for the beautiful music. Will you share the names of your wonderful musicians with us?
Certainly, I will share the names, and I'm not going to forget anyone this morning.
No.
So we have new with us this year. We have new right from the Detroit Opera Company, from the pit, and also on stage. We have the one who did a wonderful job on the Kol Nidre the other night, Mr. Lawrence Mitchell Matthews. And we have fresh from Texas. And why is she here from Texas? Because she got a free ride to U of M Ann Arbor. This is Lauren Matthews on the cello. And Dr. Henrik Karapetian on the violin. Also new is our soprano, a longtime friend of mine, Miss Bonnie Brooks. And the returning and ever popular Kate Rosen.
Now, I understand that on October 1st, which is this coming Sunday, you will be performing a piano trio.
That's
I don't
right.
understand still why it's called a piano trio when the majority of the people are not playing piano, but you'll explain that to me another time. But if you will talk about that, 3 p.m., $25.
2 p.m. 2 p.m.
No, 3 p.m. 3
It's
p.m. 3 p.m.
3
Joseph.
p.m. Oh,
3 p.m. Joseph.
this is the season of forgiveness, right? 3 o'clock p.m. 3 o'clock p.m. 3 o'clock p.m. I'm sorry, it's a long
That's
story.
okay, that's all right.
3 o'clock p.m.
We'll all sing it together with your 7-second intro
Okay,
to
okay,
what
great.
we'll
So
be hearing.
So this is the
5-second preview.
So this is the beginning and the end of the Tango by Piazzolla.
Fantastic. So if you want to hear more of that, 3 p.m. this Sunday in our
3 o'clock p.m. this Sunday. If you want to hear everything that goes in the middle, please come Sunday at 3 p.m. Tickets are available at the door. And since this is the season of forgiveness, Rabbi Jeff, will you forgive me? That was more than 7 seconds.
It was. Our friendship, though, however, can fill that space. We're going to hear, this was a much easier composition to select, and you did a good job with it, Joseph. We're going to be talking today about legacy, about what we leave behind, and we're going to be hearing this beautiful song from Hamilton called Dear Theodosia.
So, Dear Theodosia, Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton are reflecting on their children, their progeny, what they leave behind.
Dear Theodosia, what to say to you? You have my eyes, you have your mother's name. When you came into the world, you cried, and it broke my heart. I'm dedicating every day to you. Domestic life was never quite my style. When you smile, you knock me out, I fall apart, and I thought I was so smart. You will come of age with our young nation. We'll bleed and fight for you. We'll make it right for you. If we lay a strong enough foundation, we'll pass it on to you. We'll give the world to you, and you blow us all away. Someday, someday, yeah, you blow us all away. Someday, someday.
Oh, Philip, when you smile, I am undone, my son. Look at my son. Pride is not the word I'm looking for. There is so much more inside me now. Oh, Philip, you outshine the morning sun, my son. When you smile, I fall apart, and I thought I was so smart. My father wasn't around.
My father wasn't around.
I swear that I'll be around for you. I'll do whatever it takes.
I'll make a million mistakes.
I'll make the world safe and sound for you. We'll come of age with our young nation. We'll bleed and fight for you. We'll make
it right for you. If we lay a strong enough foundation, we'll pass it on to you. We'll give the world to you, and you'll blow us all away. Someday, someday. Yeah, you'll blow us all away. Someday, someday.
Thank you. We'll give them a moment to regroup in the other room, have a little rest while we continue on with the topic of our day. Thank you all so much. The genesis of this talk that I'm giving you today began well over 40 years ago during a high school class conversation about the afterlife. At the time, my family had relocated from the very Jewish suburb that I grew up in to the Buckle of the Bible Belt in Houston, Texas. And at that time, and I do credit that move for this, my Jewish identity was stimulated much, much more than I had ever experienced it in Miami. But with that boost to my Judaism came all kinds of questions, not the least of which were the kinds of questions that kept coming up in conversations with my, well, very Christian schoolmates, many of them about the afterlife. One Friday night, I approached my rabbi at the Oneg Shabbat. I told him about some of the bizarre sounding, at least to my ears, ideas that the Christian kids had shared with me about their views of what supposedly happens after we die. And that while I knew that we certainly didn't believe in a heaven where Jesus would be hanging around with us, I didn't have the slightest idea what we really did believe as Jews. It never came up in Sunday school. And it was at that Friday night Oneg Shabbat when, perhaps out of rabbinical exhaustion from it being a Friday night Oneg Shabbat, that my rabbi, Rabbi Robert Lowy, shared with me both the pithiest and the most comforting Jewish reply I could have hoped for. He said, "Don't worry about the afterlife, worry about this life. The only guarantee is that we're remembered for what we do in this life." And from that moment on, I knew I wanted to be a rabbi. There is, of course, much more to Judaism and the afterlife than that, but I never found any sentiment that spoke to me more. Today, as a humanistic rabbi, I might put it a bit differently. Today, I don't hedge when I'm asked about whether I believe in the afterlife. Life is a biological process that operates the same way for insects and reptiles and our fellow mammals alike. When it ends, it ends. In short, I believe that reason and the findings of science affirm exactly what my atheist grandfather told me when I was 8 years old. When we're dead, Jeffrey. When we're dead. No poet he. But my rabbi's bottom line still holds for me, that is not the part that matters. That it's asking ourselves what we should do with that information that counts. And for humanistic Jews, the answer to such questions, I believe, completely defines our lives. There have been many Jews throughout history and from all kinds of backgrounds who have emphasized the importance of focusing on this world and this life. The rabbis who taught me this lesson came from Reform, Reconstructionist, Conservative, and even in a few cases, Orthodox backgrounds. In fact, even those who do hold that there is something after this life are pretty vague about what it is, never coming to any kind of complete consensus, such as we find in Catholicism, for example. A quick look at the Hebrew Bible, the literature of our ancient ancestors, might help us to understand why this is. The Bible takes on what happens after death in a pretty limited way, stating only that when people die, they simply descend to a place called Sheol, meaning a deep, deep eternal abode, one that seems, the way they describe it, to lack any possibility of consciousness. Based on most biblical descriptions, if anyone is alive down there, it ain't much of a life. It's at best a shadowy, insubstantial, eternal resting place, absent anything resembling the afterlife locales that we hear about from other religions. As one pious psalm puts it, the dead can't even praise God. When I got to university, I met some rabbis who were a little bit more traditional than my Reform Rabbi Lowy. Most of them did not really veer too much from his advice to worry about this life. But sometimes they talked as if they did. One of them had a habit of thanking people for doing a good deed by saying, "You have earned an extra share in the Olam Haba, the world to come." This threw me off. Subsequently, I learned about the only really well-developed afterlife myths still in circulation, mostly, but not exclusively, among Orthodox Jews. That notion that someday, at some indefinable end of times, in the Olam Haba, the world to come, God will send a Mashiach, a Messiah, a descendant of King David, who will gather up all the Jews, the living and the dead, through bodily resurrection, and gather them, us, in the land of Israel. When that happens, the Holy Temple supposedly will be rebuilt, and in this Olam Haba, this world to come, all people will supposedly come to the realization that the Jews were God's chosen people after all, and thus will the so-called kingdom of God begin its reign on earth. No one really knows, or has ever claimed to know, when the Mashiach, the Messiah, will arrive, or how he's going to make all of this happen. And even in the Talmud and other Jewish literature, they argued about what this kingdom of God was going to look like. Some claimed that for the Jews at least, it would be a party all the time. Some imagined everyone just sitting around with halos on their heads, basking in the boring glory of Yahweh. In the meantime, it's been 2,000 years or so since this fable began to circulate, and no one has adequately addressed what's been going on all this time with our dead ancestors, while we and they waited for this nonsensical fantasy to begin. Even if this was all that Judaism had to offer about the subject, it would have been enough to justify Rabbi Lowy's and my answer to worry about what we do in this life. Unfortunately, there were other parts of our ancient literature of the Hebrew Bible that had some more clear wisdom to offer, even some that can guide us to this day. About 2,200 years ago, during a time of great Hellenistic and cosmopolitan influence on Jews and others, there was one Jewish writer, known only to us as Kohelet, the convener, who produced an important Hebrew book, which they called in Greece for some reason, I guess it's the translation of the convener, Ecclesiastes. It found a place of honor in our Hebrew Bible. It's so unconventional, so divorced from ideas in the rest of the Bible that scholars think it only made it in there because the final compilers of the book got it into their heads that King Solomon wrote it. He did not. Unlike most of the Bible, which was concerned with the history of the Israelites and the Jews, Kohelet takes a more philosophical turn. He travels a road that he hoped would help him to uncover the meaning of life. He's very quotable. Having noted that there seemed to be nothing new under the sun, he cataloged the many ways that we spend our short time under the sun. Some of us, he notes, in hedonistic pursuits or in amassing wealth. Others in seeking fame. Some of us in pursuit of knowledge, others in contemplation, and so forth. Not a thing we might choose, he worries, can really ward off, though, our dread about the nothingness of death. So far you probably think that Kohelet, what a downer. Nothing matters? Well, that is his starting point, but it's not his conclusion. His conclusion is encapsulated in this observation. The day of one's death is better than the day of one's birth. I want us to consider the insight behind this statement. In many ways, it perfectly summarizes the humanistic and, as I've said, widely emphasized Jewish idea that what really matters are the deeds we perform during this one lifetime that we are given. The deeds, large and small, that constitute the legacy of our time on this earth. This, if you haven't figured it out already, is precisely the reason that in Jewish culture, we observe our days of remembrance not on the birth dates of people, as many cultures do, but on the anniversaries of their deaths, the yahrzeits. Kohelet does not teach us that the day of one's death is better than the day of one's birth because we should be happy that someone is dead. He's reminding us that the day of our death seals the legacy we leave behind. Knowing this, Kohelet inspires us and challenges us to start building that legacy now, in this lifetime, because we only have one with which to accomplish it. In the time that remains to us this morning, I want to turn our attention and our purposes, as Kohelet might say, to a broader consideration of how we do that, what kinds of legacies we should be thinking about. Let's begin with what we leave to those closest to us, the people over whom, even without trying, we have the most influence, our families. Consider the various ways we impact our families. For those of us with children, we begin sharing our legacies with them, for better or worse, from the moment they are born. And while much of what we'll explore this morning is about what we leave behind, how we leave behind the best of ourselves and what we have to offer, whenever we talk about family, we also must acknowledge that there can be legacies we don't wish to pass on, harmful emotional or behavioral patterns, things that yield abuse, neglect, or other traumatic consequences. Negative legacies may include repercussions left by substance abuse, anger issues, harmful secrets, prejudices, and biases, other such examples. The good news is that by fixing our own attention on leaving behind a positive legacy, and this was reflected in the song, well, that can be a great motivator for reversing the negative kinds of legacies we ourselves inherit. I was struck by both of the parents, Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr, talking about not having much of a father, if any, and how they would become determined to change that. Because while it may be true that families frequently perpetuate cycles of negative legacies, it is equally true that it only takes one generation determined to end those cycles to set things aright. Assuming we do create functional families with the capacity for happiness, we can focus our attention upon leaving behind the best of ourselves, our knowledge of life's ups and downs, the wisdom we possess that can only be acquired by experience. We can share the values that can make them stronger people, integrity and honesty, kindness and empathy, resilience and patience, tolerance and generosity, and loyalty and humility. And we can share the global values we cherish, the ways we try to make the world, as our two singers in the song reflected, a better and more just place for all of us. Returning to the more personal, and I notice this every time I conduct a memorial or a funeral, people seek to nurture or even create wonderful family traditions, unique holiday and cultural practices, other rituals. It can be something as small as what I shared with my own mom, football. Customs, great and small, we create, foster familial love and belonging, and are worthy of passing down to our children. There are, of course, those of us who do not have our own children, and that number is growing among our young people. but it's no barrier. Throughout my career as a rabbi, I have witnessed people, both with and without their own children, creating deep and abiding relationships with surrogate families, surrogate children, and others. Some are actual family members, sometimes nieces and nephews, some not related through any family connection at all. One small piece of the legacy I have hoped to leave behind through my rabbinate and my teaching has been sharing the significance of creating and nurturing families of choice. Regardless of the opportunities or challenges that might be presented by our families of origin, we can always choose to make our own families of choice. They consist of those very special friends for whom we can provide and from whom we can receive mutual support and love and care. Jewish tradition is very, very deeply steeped in recognizing and recommending those deep and abiding relationships, these families of choice that are as strong as any provided by lifelong familial bonds. The significance of such families of choice and the legacies they bequeathed are illustrated in two beautiful stories from Jewish tradition I want to share with you. The first one comes from a biblical book, which scholars believe was written to serve as what we might today call a prequel. You know this word, right? A backstory, if you will, about a towering legend, one of Israel's most revered and renowned leaders. The prequel is the story found in the book of Ruth. It tells the tale of two special women who formed their own family of choice, held together by an enduring bond. The two heroes of our story were named Ruth, for whom the book is named, and Naomi. Naomi was an Israelite woman who, together with her husband, moved from Israel eastward to nearby Moab. There, she and her husband raised two sons who married local women, Orpah and Ruth. After the tragic deaths of all the men in their family, Naomi made the decision to return to Israel, leaving her daughters-in-law to return to their own families of origin, as was the practice in those times. Orpah did so, but Ruth would not. The bond she had formed with her mother-in-law was simply too strong. And even though, according to their laws, she was really no longer Naomi's daughter-in-law, their familial love transcended blood ties. It transcended even cultural and national boundaries. They became for one another a family of choice. In her insistence upon staying, Ruth uttered immortal words: "Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people will be my people." Her decision to stay with Naomi led to Ruth's courtship. Ultimately, she married her second husband in Israel, a man named Boaz, a man whom she would not have met without the introduction of Naomi. And that marriage produced a son and 9 generations of descendants. And here's where the prequel part comes in, that led to none other than King David. The legendary legacy of this loving bond of family choice, a family of choice, forged by Naomi and Ruth. The second story about the power of families of choice comes from the Talmud. In this case, it is the very true story of two men who formed a bond stronger than that of any biological father and son. Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai lived around 1900 years ago. Akiva, whose name you may recognize because it's on many educational institutions to this day, was one of the most celebrated rabbis of Jewish history, a teacher, an inspiration to countless disciples. But sadly, his legacy would never be passed down by most of them, as a tragic plague struck that took most of their lives. Rabbi Akiva's own biological sons had untimely deaths. But one of his disciples who did survive was the man whom Rabbi Akiva regarded as like a son, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Without this loving bond between them, this family of choice formed by them, Rabbi Akiva's teachings may have been lost to history. Today, Jews from every background recognize that Rabbi Akiva's and his generation's many contributions are responsible in so many ways for the modern Judaism that we all inherited, every movement, every type, because Shimon was there to preserve his legacy. Beyond our children and grandchildren and our families of choice, there's a whole wide world of legacies that each of us can leave behind to influence others for the better. Such legacies return to us the gift of knowing that when we are gone, something of us lives on through the contributions we make to even wider circles of acquaintance and belonging. These I call the power of communal legacies. What we leave behind, not just to our families and closest loved ones, but to the larger groups of people with whom we are involved, the causes and the communities that we choose to serve and to lead and to be part of. So much has been written and said about the rewards of service. The mental health benefits alone are worth the time and effort we put into them. But in the context of our topic today, it's also worthwhile to think about what we leave behind as a legacy of service, what people will remember and honor and emulate through the contributions we make that touch lives through communities long beyond our own days of service. Since 2019, every year at this time, I recall the legacy of one of our incredible members, a man who belonged to this conversation, Jerry Grodsky of blessed memory. For those of you who did not have the honor of knowing him, and it was an honor, Jerry was, to put it mildly, a man who embodied the heart and soul of our community. Because he was also the best Baal Tekiah, master of the shofar, that I ever heard, that most of us ever heard, I particularly remember him at this season. Many of us do. But I can just as easily recall all of the little things he did for our community every day. Always the first to help set up things, to move tables and chairs around, to get whatever else needed getting done ready for any communal event. Jerry also taught Hebrew to our children, what is stereotypically a thankless job. Who has great memories of their Hebrew teachers? Well, our kids do, because he performed it with such love and such generosity that every single one of our recent Bar Mitzvah celebrants, just since the pandemic, has taken a moment to thank him in their words, in their speeches. And this is now 4 years after his death. They're recalling a man whom they knew and loved when they were at most 8 or 9 or 10 years old. That Jerry's legacy continues to loom so large in our collective communal memory almost seems at odds with the saddest of realities, that he died unexpectedly in the fullness of life at the age of 49. At his funeral, we learned that our congregation was not the only community to which he left an enduring legacy. His passion and dedication to all the communities and causes, and there were many, with which he was involved, continued to inspire others to contribute and to volunteer and to belong. In his short life, his cycle of positive change left a lasting legacy. The love, the support, the wisdom we share both with our loved ones and those in the wider rings of our lives do not vanish with our deaths. They become part of the emotional fabric of the people we touch as we seek to be an influence for good. It is possible at every stage in our lives, every stage. Last Rosh Hashanah morning, we read the words of Rabbi Harold Schulweis of blessed memory. In his poem, It Is Never Too Late, he reminds us that every single moment in our lives offers an opportunity to impact for the good on others, to leave a lasting legacy. He notes that the last word has not been spoken, the last sentence not been written, the final verdict is not in. Part of that we read this morning. And he continues by reminding us that even at the very end of our lives, we can impart wisdom, something of lasting value to those around us. In sickness and in dying, he says, it is never too late. Living, I teach. Dying, I teach. How I face pain and fear. Others observe me, children, adults, students of life and death, learn from my bearing, my posture, my philosophy. That's what it means to leave a legacy. That's what it means to be immortal. Yes, you heard that correctly. For us humanistic Jews, it is this gift of legacy that is our path to immortality. Rabbi Wein once wrote of the need to accept the reality of death, saying, loved ones do not pass away, they die. But he also continued by reminding us that they leave their gifts, their legacy. We still bask in their love, he wrote. We still use their instruction. We are still inspired by their deeds. In this way, he taught, we are actually immortal. The legacies we leave behind preserved by the wonderful ability of those who are still here to remember. Undoubtedly, even we humanistic Jews sometimes find ourselves lamenting, it's not enough. And yes, it's true. Even memories of those who were very influential and well-remembered eventually fade. Just like the inscriptions we find on headstones in old cemeteries. I find myself ruminating on this as I consider the legacy I leave to my own children and grandchildren. It will not, I know, last beyond 2 or 3 generations, at least personally, at best. For such normal people as ourselves, unlikely to join the pantheon of great historical personages, that's a reality that we must accept. That's always been true. My own children have no personal experiences of their great-great-grandparents, very little knowledge of their great-grandparents, except for those few stories shared by me or my former wife. I find comfort in knowing that my grandchildren will have, I hope, memories of me, even as I wonder how much the children of these 2 precious people in my lives will know of my existence, as I ask, what legacy do I leave to them? And this is where we look beyond the personal remembrances we leave behind on this earth. For even if our individual names or specific actions may long be forgotten, the positive impact that they have continues to ripple through time. The kindness we showed, the love we felt, the wisdom we shared, they really are recycled, l'dor vador, from generation to generation, extending far beyond those who ever met us or ever heard our names. This awareness perhaps explains the popularity of the story of Honi the Circle Maker. Honi was advanced in age when one day a child stumbled upon him planting a carob tree that would clearly not bear fruit until long after Honi's own death. The child famously asked him, "Why bother?" Honi replied by saying, "When I was born into this world, I found many beautiful carob trees planted by those who came before me. Just as my ancestors planted trees for me, I am planting trees for my children and grandchildren and the generations to come so they will have carob to eat. Honi's answer reminds us that we are, each and every one of us, part of a vast tapestry of history and creation and experience. And whether or not we are remembered as individuals in 100 or 1,000 years, we leave behind the consequences of our individual actions and decisions, for better and for worse, each of which contribute to the collective human story. There is a widespread custom in Jewish culture that whenever we mention the name of some worthy person who has died, we add something. Sometimes we say, of blessed memory. Sometimes we say, may their memory be a blessing. We say these things both to comfort and to praise. The comfort comes from the way that remembering people can momentarily alleviate a bit of our grief. The praise is a reminder that every worthwhile person's lifetime leaves behind a legacy, sometimes challenging, but often wonderful. May each of us merit great legacies, legacies that we build with intent, gifts to our families and to our families of choice, to our communities and beyond. That it may be said about every one of us that our legacy was bequeathed to them by our choice to live lives of love, of connection, and to perform deeds that mattered. Perhaps in this day, in this way, when we are recalled, our lives and our legacies will indeed be for a blessing. Chag Sameach, everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning and for allowing me to share those thoughts with you. As we welcome our musicians back, we have one last reading. What's our closing song today, Joseph? Salam Shalom, Od Yavo Shalom, on 26. But as they re-enter, we turn to this beautiful poem by Siegfried Sassoon, a wonderful way, I think, to end our Yom Kippur services, although we do have our memorial at 2 o'clock today, and everyone, of course, is invited to that. It's called Everyone Sang. Everyone suddenly burst out singing, and I was filled with such delight as prison birds must find in freedom, winging wildly across the white orchards and dark green fields, on and out of sight. Everyone's voice was suddenly lifted and beauty came like the setting sun. My heart was shaken with tears and horror drifted away. Oh, but everyone was a bird and the song was wordless. The singing will never be done.
Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Ve'akulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Ve'akulam. Salam, 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 salam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Ve'akulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Ve'akulam. Salam, salam, Ve'akulam. Salam, 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 salam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Ve'akulam. Everybody, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Shalom Aleinu ve'alulam. Salam, 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 salam.
Good Yantif, everyone.
That's all right, no problem. Yeah. I was ready for it. Pick it up. We have